Hello and welcome back. Thanks so much for joining me today. We're going to combine three of my loves today: sewing, Disney, and running. And with all of that, you might have an idea of what we're doing because when I run at Disney, I love to dress up and I will make some of my own costumes because it's a fun way to do something a little bit different, have some fun. So what I have here in front of you are four skirts that I've made, and these are made out of fabric that I had printed on tech material, which I will include links in the description. I've had it made in tech material, so it works awesome when you run in it. But what I do is I make this skirt, and it's just a circle skirt. That's really all it is, out of this tech material. I have it custom printed, and if you search Spoonflower, you can find all these different designs. Today, I'm going to make a bubblegum wall inspired skirt. But let me talk you through how I do this to begin. So first of all, I like to have a marking pen. This is a fine point disappearing pen right here. I've got a couple different kinds that I have on hand. Again, I'll include some links in the description. So I use this to mark on my fabric, and it's water soluble or air soluble, which means that it's going to go away. It's not going to stain. You'll be fine. And now I just use these templates, the skirts that I've made, and just trace them. But to make my first one, what I did was I kind of got some measurements of some of the other running skirts that I have. And sparkle skirts are some of my absolute favorite. I still run in those. Check them out if you haven't. What I did was I measured the waistband, and this is 1-inch elastic. They have white and black. And again, I'll include links to these. So I measured the size of what my skirts were that I was running with. And I run in a medium. So this I cut at, I'll give you my measurements here, is about, so that's 14 inches, so 28 plus about an inch or so overlap. So between, I would say about 30 inches or so is what I would do, give or take. Play around with it. You can always cut it smaller. You can't make it bigger unless you cut it all over again. So we'll start there. What I did was I fold my fabric in half and I just created a circle. So I took a piece of string and I tied it to one of these marking pens and I marked my center. So here, if I mark my center, I have my measuring tape. So I created a string and I kind of had 2 points. And I tied the string, so I basically created a compass. But in this case, I'm using water and fabric ready materials here. So what I did was I made my again, this is me, about a size medium. I did about 5 inches, 5.5 inches, whatever you think is appropriate. And that is what I made my string when I made my middle. So I just took one, whatever you need. It could be a pin, it could be another one of these, tied my string around it. Took my other pen, made this distance between tip to tip 5 inches. I then kept this one the same and went around and created this circle. So this is creating my waist. Think about this for a second. I've got an elastic that's about, 15 inches or so, but this is curved. So when I've got this 5, you're gonna get a decent amount of, it's gonna work out, trust me. So then I did the same thing from the center to the end. And let's measure what that would be. So we're just I'm giving you approximations because everyone's different. About 18 inches. So, bye-bye. I'm 5'1". I made mine a little bit shorter. You may want to make yours 20 inches, 21, 22. You can add on, you can cut it off, you can't add on. So what I do is I get 1 yard of fabric and I fold it in half. So that's what I'm gonna do next. And again, I'm gonna put a lot of stuff in the description here because I know that I'm not being super detailed, but I'm trying. And this is, I don't have a pattern for this. This is just kind of what I do. So let me show you exactly what I do in this case. And you may have an A-line skirt or something that works really well for you that you can just copy. I have run in a few A-line skirts before that I've bought off Amazon for about, I want to say like 15 to 20 bucks. They're inexpensive and they are great to run in because they're a nice material. So I lay this right sides together because I need something that I can draw on. The other thing to consider is what I'm about to sew here is directional. Not a big deal to me. I don't really care about that. If it is, you may need more fabric. In this case, I kind of like the idea of it being a little wonky and not totally aligned and kind of offset. So this is 1 yard is what I can get away with. I've done about 1.25 yards for some larger skirts for friends that I've helped make. So I just lay this and you can see how 1 yard works well for me. So I make sure that I've got this pretty spread out and pretending that I have one here, one piece here, another one on the edge. If I were to have a string between them, I would just kind of draw this semicircle. So that's what I need to do is I'm going to, and I'm just using the inside of what I have here as a guide to draw on this fabric. So I'm kind of making this loosely rough pattern here. I'm going to include some pictures of me in these skirts at the beginning and the end running so you have an idea of how they look. They honestly, like I ran a full marathon in one of these and was totally fine. So I've done that. I've just drawn around here just like I would if I was going around. And you're gonna need to kind of just go like a little bit at a time, go very slow and easy so that you don't move the fabric too much. Be very gentle. So I've done that curve. Next thing I need to do is I want to draw my straight line. And you can start here really if you want. It may help. So I am going to draw my straight line here. And I'm just going to go all the way across. I'm using this ruler to help me get something that's somewhat straight. That one is drying out. I'm going to have to change. Yeah, there we go. And this is where these pens don't last long. You know, no matter what I do, I store them with the tips down to make sure they don't dry out. I do a lot of different things to try and help make them last longer. Okay, that side is done. Let me go to the other side. Do this one. It's not quite straight. And this is just going to help give me a nice guide. You can draw your straight line all the way across if you want. I don't need to do it in this center because I'm cutting that out. And now, if this is your first time doing it, if you're not tracing something, this is where you're going to, and it may help to mark your center, go out to the outside. And we're going to do the entire thing and mark it. So I'm going to do that now. This is where you may need 2 in order to really see and get that really nice curve. I found that over time, sometimes one side gets a little bit longer than the other, just because the string, you know, if you're angling your pen, really try and keep it straight up and down, because if you start angling it, your distance is going to vary from where you are in the center. So really try and keep your pen straight. I know it's super hard to do so, but just see what you can do. Remember, you can always kind of trim things. You can do what you need to do to make it easy, but just kind of have a little bit of fun with it. And remember that it's only fabric. You know, maybe order a little bit more than you need. The only thing is, and I think, I don't know, I'll double check. I may have a coupon code for Spoonflower. If I do, I'll mention it in the description. If not, you know, maybe wait until there's a sale, because I think this is about $30 to $36 a yard. But you end up with this fantastic, unique, original outfit that you can run in. So the next thing that I need to do is add my seam allowance, because I've got two seams. I'm sewing these together, and this is why it's right side. So I am going to, I can take this away now. I can take this away. I need to add, and I'm doing a 1/2 inch seam for the top here. So I'm gonna add that in right now. 1/2 inch seam for the top where I am sewing these two halves together. So I'm just going to mark that here using the 1/2 inch line on my ruler. I'm going to do that. And then I might just easily, casually, and I like marking both of these so that I know what is my cut line and what is my sew line. I'm just kind of extend that there so I can see where this curve goes. And I've done this enough that I can kind of just guesstimate. So I've got that. It's gonna work perfect. Now all I have to do is cut this out, and this is where I really recommend investing in a nice pair of scissors. I have, my favorite right here are these Gingers, and I love to use these. But what I'm going to do first is, because I've got a straight line here, I'm just going to use my rotary cutter for me, because this is on my mat and I can just cut this straight and easily. It cuts beautifully on here. Like, this fabric cuts so nice. And I will also say, I have washed in my machine all of those skirts that I showed you, and they wash just fine. This is not what I would recommend doing for cutting, but I just want to get that cut. Okay, this can just go aside. I don't need this anymore, you know. Let me see what this is like to make a face mask. I don't know. I'll check that in a little bit. Now, the next piece is to cut this out with my scissors. So I just have these scissors here, and I'm going to cut on the lines. These are ones where I'm just cutting on the line. I'm not adding a seam allowance because this fabric doesn't require it. If you're using a different material, you may need to add a seam allowance up into the area that's going to sit around you and the bottom. So again, this material does not need a seam allowance on the bottom. Like, we're going to leave the end raw. This is what's so simple and easy about this skirt. I don't need to do much. So I am going to cut out this circle, and I'm going to be pretty gentle. I'm going to really pay attention so I don't have these like jagged edges, and make sure that I am being smooth with my scissors. Otherwise, you're going to really see kind of a jagged edge. And this is where having a really nice pair of scissors pays off. Keep your eye out for sales. Keep your eye out on you know, Black Friday deals that might be coming up, or just online. But definitely keep your eye out for deals. I'm starting to kind of get around the edge, and what I want to do is, where are my pins? Where did I put them? Here they are. I need to start moving around a little bit, but I don't want this seam to move. So I'm going to add a whole bunch of pins. And again, this is why it's so awesome to work with this with the right sides together, because we're just going to sew it. And it's going to be pretty easy. because we're literally sewing down one side, sewing down another, and we are keeping these together. But you'll notice I'm putting a lot of pins in here. I just put 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 pins over this area, so every about 1.5 inches. And I want to do this before I start getting all the way around in case I have to move the fabric a little bit. I want to keep things in place. So let's keep going. This one I might have 10 pieces, 10 pins. I don't know, 2, 4, 6, 8, yeah, 9 pins. Sounds like I'm about to go bowling. Okay, good. I wanted to get that done. And yes, I did just have to go on my tippy toes to do this because like I said, I am 5'1" and this is not easy for me to get this far. Make sure that I am getting everything perfect. And I can always come back and trim things up, kind of perfect things a little bit, so it's not that big of a deal. And now we can just start back on this side, come closer to you, and cut things apart. So let's keep going until we reach the whole thing. And I know this is going to be a long video, but I don't want to do too many edits because I want you to see real time exactly what it takes for me to make this. Okay. Can you see what I just did there? How this came together? So this will be my skirt. You can kind of see how it's going to be a little bit of at an angle, and it should be fun. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sew on that first line that we drew, 1/2 inch in from the seam that I cut. So I'm going to do that. I am going to back stitch a little bit on the bottom and the top. That's going to lock my seam in place. And I'm going to sew with, I'm going to use 100% cotton thread for this because that's what I always use. I'm going to use about a 2.0 stitch length. So let me do that and I'll come back and show you what the next step is with the elastic, because that can get a little bit tricky. Okay, I have my seam sewn together. Let's turn this right side out. All right, that looks pretty cool. I like how that looks. It's kind of got this fun feel to it. Next up, we have to make the elastic because that's going to hold it up. We don't want it to fall down when we're running. And I will tell you right now, I've never had issues with this falling down. So we need to cut our elastic first. And I do want to just double check because I remember telling you, but I want to double check what I cut this at. So I'm actually going to double check by running this all the way around. I'm not stretching out my elastic at all. And I'm just running this around. And you can check some of the elastics of your other skirts if you have, say, a sparkle skirt or another skirt that you really like how it fits. Check and see how it is. Yeah, okay. Exactly what I thought, about 29 inches. But I love this. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to measure out 29 inches. And then we need to sew this together. Cut this, double check, measure twice, cut once. So this is the same roll of elastic that I've had this will now be my 5th skirt with this white. I've yet to use the black. So you can get quite a few out of these elastic rolls here. So I want to show you how I'm going to overlap this by 1 inch. Do 1 inch on either side. So I'm going to create a loop, make sure it isn't twisted. Do not twist it, create this perfect loop. Overlap it by 1 inch on either side. And we are going to sew this together. And I want to show you how I sew this together so that it really stays nice and secure. So I will put 2 pins in like this, kind of, you'll put 2 pins in there on either side. And let me bring this over. Let me bring this over so you can see what I did. So I do a square and I kind of go around, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and then I kind of go around. And I just want to do several takes on that because I want this to really not go anywhere. And by doing that and reinforcing it, it's going to keep that pretty secure. So I'm going to do that on my elastic, and I will come back and show you how I attach it to the skirt. All right, I've got my elastic sewn together, and you can see this is pretty stretchy. I am happy with that. What I like to do now is I'm going to lay the skirt out again so that I know what the front is and what the back is, just because I want to center what we just sewed in the back. And it doesn't really matter to me for in this case which one is the front or back. If you had some directional prints and you needed to be careful about that, then do that. So I'm going to lay this out so that the seam is on the back, and I'm going to kind of finger press and figure out, okay, this is about the middle, great. This is going to go on my edge, the seam that I sewed here. And I'm going to put that, and I like to kind of go most of the way up of the elastic. I like to kind of cover most of it so that I know that I'm catching the entire thing. That's just my personal preference. And I'm going to do the same with the other one. Again, making sure I'm not twisting anything. So I've split the elastic in half, and now I've kind of finger pressed, and by finger press, I mean use my fingers to create almost an indentation so I can see where that is the halfway point. You could mark it if you want. I don't. I like to live on the wild side. Okay, I've got those pins in. Then I kind of turn this the other direction. And you're gonna kind of just start moving this around a little bit and seeing, all right, now where is the middle? So I know this middle here, and I'm gonna lay out those seams, and I'm just gonna kind of figure out, okay, where's my next middle? Right here. And it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to now put the middle of where I sewed right there. You could be way more precise than I am, but this is just how I make it work because it's a running skirt. And find the middle here. Excellent. And now I can add in several more pins. And let's see. Let me show you how far up I go. So you can see the fabric here and how far up. Okay, this is better because I like the seams open. So the white is the elastic, and then you've got the seams. You can see I probably got about a 1/4 inch showing, and this is 1 inch wide elastic. Now, I'm going to kind of take this and kind of just guesstimate and put in a few more pins to keep things pretty in line here, because I want to make sure that the elastic and the skirt line up. When we sew this, we are going to be stretching our fabric and our elastic because I am sewing with cotton thread. If I just sewed and I didn't adjust a little bit, then my thread's gonna break. So I have to really stretch the elastic and put a lot of seams in there. And this probably makes no sense to you guys until I'm gonna bring you down to the machine next so you can see what this looks like, because it's a little confusing and I think you really need to sew the elastic on good and tight. So let me finish pinning this and putting some pins in. I'm doing like 2 in between each 1/4 segment of the skirt. So let me do that. And then I'm gonna bring you down to the machine, and this will make a lot of sense when you see how I sew it together. All right, I know I've got some crazy shadows here and I need some blinds for this window, but otherwise it's super dark in here. So this gives you a good close-up of the seam here of what I sewed the elastic together. This is where I'm going to start. Now I've got my fabric up pretty high with the elastic. I'm gonna sew down at the bottom. And I'm going to do about a 1/4 inch from the bottom, which is going to guarantee that I'm going to catch all of the fabric here. So I'm going to, and really be careful that you have nothing underneath your fabric that you're about to sew. I like to have my needle in the needle down position when I'm sewing. So anytime I stop, the needle stays down. So I'm going to do a couple of stitches, back stitch, and I'm going to do that to lock in my stitches. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I just took my pin out, and I am going to grab with my fingers, I'm going to pinch where I have the pin here. I'm going to pinch the fabric and the elastic, and I'm going to pull. I'm really going to pull, and now I'm going to sew from here, and I'm going to basically sew that segment. And now I'm going to release. And I'm going to turn my skirt a little bit, just keep turning this, and make it so that, make sure, double check, okay, none of the skirt on the other side is underneath. I'm going to remove the pin that's right next to my needle, and I'm going to pinch with my fingers where I have the next pin, and I'm going to pull. I'm going to really stretch this out, and now I'm going to sew. Okay, and literally when it is here, this may be an inch or two between the pins. And when I stretch this out, so I'm going to pinch both together, pull it out, that's almost doubled, I would say, in length. So I'm going to now, and I kind of like to pull as well behind me at times to keep it evenly taut. I'm going to keep doing that. When I'm approaching my seam, I like to try and have my seam open. I don't know if you can see here. I like it open instead of pressed to one side so it doesn't get too bulky. So I'm going to get to that point. I'm going to kind of rotate this. I'm going to pinch them together with this hand. My other hand, I'm going to pull both, and I'm going to sew. Okay, I'm going to continue to do this, and I know it's a little tricky to see, but you know, again, I think you're getting the idea here where I need to grab both the fabric and the elastic, pinch, and I'm going to do this from behind, pull, really pull. You can see how far I'm pulling and extending. I'm basically, as much as I can stretch the elastic, that's what I'm doing. All right, what do you guys think? Looks pretty good. It's stretchy. I've got plenty of room to run in. You can see how it just kind of swoops around. It's pretty easy, and I think it came out pretty awesome. All right, so let me know what you guys think. Did this make any sense at all? Do you have questions about what I just did? Are there things that confused you? Because this is literally the only clothing that I've sewn. I don't sew. I don't sew clothing. We know I sew plenty. I just do not sew clothing. So this is about the extent. My knowledge of it is minimal, but I think given what I know about sewing, I was able to make something pretty cute. This was going to be what I was going to wear for the Star Wars races. I was going to do something based off of this, a little mashup in April, but those got canceled. So now I've got a skirt that I can wear at a future race. If you guys have questions, again, please let me know. I hope you get out there, create something beautiful. Happy sewing, happy running, happy Disney everything. I'll see you guys soon. Have a great day.